Man, this Hanlu's cool, huh? With the bad end version of Hanlu coming out in a few hours, I decided, hey, let's talk about him. What does he do in this world? Who is he if Hanlu were to take the vengeance route? Just make a theory out video on him. And the other bad end IDs. I originally thought that I could handle it. I thought that talking about 7 or 8 identities with major hypothetical scenarios on what happens if the sinner was unable to do what our sinners could would be fine and simple. But it didn't, for a good fucking reason. So to make things short, I underestimated that task and decided, nah, I'm good. I'm going to leave that video for later and instead decided to focus on one, which in this case is the Lord of Hongyuan, which is a lot more manageable to talk about one major ID than 7 major IDs. But oh well, moving on from that, this version of Hanlu is very interesting, as all seasonal highlight IDs are, but this one more so because I noticed this one first writing the bad end ID video, is that there are 2 kinds of seasonal highlight IDs. There are those that are essentially a what if scenario with the sinner themselves, such as Encore Sinclair and Manager Dawn, and there are those that take on a similar path as the Kanto's antagonists, such as Spice Blushy's son and Captain Ishmael. In Hanlu's case, he's sort of a mixture of both, kind of like Wild Hunt Heathcliff in a way, where you follow a path similar to that of the Earl King, but because the Earl King is Heathcliff himself, it's also a what if scenario with Heathcliff as well. The difference though between Heathcliff and Hanlu is that Lord Hanlu is on a what if scenario where he was vengeful instead of nihilistic, but he also walks on a similar path to that of Jia Chu. Kind of. So in this video, I want to essentially theorize on what kind of character this Hanlu is, based off the identities in the world of Hongyuan IDs and his trailer, and also have fun with it, unlike that bad end ID video, which wasn't fun to make. But enough lamenting about that, and get straight into it. So to start off, we need to know what's actually going on in this mirror world, from the perspective of the characters in this world, which are C. Gregor, C. Rodian, Zilu Faust, and Ish-chun Ishmael. Maorioshu and Mao Otis don't count, because they exist in a different world. But still, even if they were in the same world, these 2 IDs provide no context to either Hanlu himself or what happened to the Heisho after he took over. It's just the 2 of them doing their missions that are completely unrelated to him and his goals, and not much else, I think. Now, let's start with analyzing what's actually happening in this world, starting with the 2 snake Heishos. Gregor is currently in the C branch base of operations, inspecting his new mutations after eating his 7th procedure of his bolus, becoming more flexible and more deadly like a snake. But now, it seems like a new batch has been made by and sent in by the Heisho Shanren, aka the head of said Heisho branch, which was odd considering that they already received their last batch, but Gregor quickly realizes that there are a bunch of newcomers after their previous lord's half-baked orders caused a bunch of losses after sending multiple C Heishos to fight in an open field in a frontal assault. Gee, I wonder who that is. Anyways, after comforting the newcomers, he found out that there is a new snake that volunteered to take over a mission that the veteran snake that brought in the boluses in the first place should have handled, and their new lord agreed to the change. The mission is for one of them to go to a small place called Pine Hermitage and decapitate everyone that is on the list and crush the skulls of anyone else that isn't on the list as an exception clause. And that new snake that volunteered to take over that mission was Rodian. To quickly switch perspectives, Rodian is out here killing a bunch of villagers, beheading them with her pole, as stated in the mission, thinking that every swing is a beheading of the arrogant, and their decapitated heads thump lightly before rolling across the wood floor like bowling balls. He starts to converse with the decapitated heads, saying how they don't know her life and how they don't know the shearing cold and hunger and the like. As usual, this Rodian is one that came from an extremely poor background, like a couple other Rodian IDs. He continues on, saying that they were all looking for power, and that this want and greed for power drew the attention of our lord, and that want for power came in the form of a family hierarch contender of the Jia family, a child that doesn't even know what they are saying in the first place. Rodian hesitated on killing him because, well, he's a child, but for the sake of the mission, she is getting ready to kill kill the child by beheading as an act of mercy, rather than crushing his skull, after mentioning something about the Lord's promise of getting her out of here. But Gregor got to him first, and stabs the child's skull as precisely and easily as stabbing through an inert apple. Gee, what a reminder, huh? Anyways, after a small conversation between the two, Gregor leaves to take on her report to the Lord, whilst Rodian goes back to her unclean and messy room and laments over the fact on why she wasn't chosen to be free, since that's the whole reason why she suffers through this job of a Heisho, to do everything as they're told, which is usually violent and cold. All of that in order to free herself of this position as an animal. Now, it may seem like these two ID stories have no actual meaning towards Hanlu, but if you look at the right things, it shows a lot. Firstly, the Sea branch has obtained a new lord, which is soon to be revealed as Hanlu in Shichen Ishmael's story, and he has been using them to lower the chances of the other family hierarch contenders to rival him, at least according to Rodin, so that's cool. And secondly, it comes to show the depression nature of a Heisho. They're always talked down upon and treated like animals, even by Hanlu himself, I believe. So they're unable to escape their lives as Heishos either way, which is saddening, but we have to move on to a different Heisho, an adept to be specific. This one is a very important identity, who is essentially a right-hand assassin to Hanlu, Zilu Faust. And who boy do we have a lot to talk on that. Zilu Faust is an interesting identity, and it shows pretty quickly as to why that is the case, as I explain what has happened in our ID story. We start ourselves off with a conversation between Faust and, well, Faust, or to be extra specific, the Gesellschaft, or the Faust Discord, which is the first time that a Faust has directly name-dropped the Gesellschaft. Now, I believe that W Core Faust is another Faust that converses with the Faust Discord as well, but she doesn't name drop it, unlike Zilu Faust, who is currently talking with them about her obtaining the information in their database to learn and also be more involved with the Discord itself. Zilu Faust disagrees, saying that the Faust Discord provides a distractingly overabundant amount of information that lacks righteousness and is too utilitarian, believing that it will set her in a wrong path, just like the other Fausts. She begins to recall her first meeting with the Lord to them, since Faust only knows everything that Faust knows, but does not know what Faust does not know. To translate, the Faust Discord has no fucking clue why this Faust doesn't do what they want her to do. So back to the story, we get to see Faust and Hanlu first meeting each other in a clash of blades, giving us our first appearance of this world's Hanlu. He seems to be trying to have a conversation while fighting her, but he's struggling, probably. So after a bit, he asks her a burning question. What does she like? Faust thinks this is a distraction, but Hanlu fires back saying that there's no point to fight anymore since 1. He killed her lord, and 2. Revealed a big secret about her, that she's a member of the Pinky named the Tianju Star. Faust stops fighting and is surprised that he knows this, so he asks again, what does she like? Faust responds with swords, which is an interesting and battle-hard answer, but this isn't the actual question, not the casual one, at least, since firstly, he doesn't know anything about her, truthfully, and secondly, she only focuses on what she's good at. You never seek out knowledge outside your expertise. You never try to learn new things, and that learning could bring you to new paths, unparalleled paths that no one could even dream of following, which he's right, but Faust doubts it though. But Hanlu eventually convinces her to join him so that she can learn so many things that she would like. A righteous cause, a battlefield, the means to utilize your qualities. Faust questions what he's doing here, and he responds with this. Hongyuan, as it is now, is but a pale imitation. The hierarch is unlike a hierarch should be, and families are unlike how families should be. So I intend to make everything right. What Hongyuan needs is... And then we cut back to the conversation. The Faust Discord is a bit worried, saying that Hanlu is a bit too suspicious with his grand plan under the great cause of rectification of names, whatever that means, and that he uses everyone as tools and chooses violence as the common approach to his problems. But Faust won't leave him, explaining to them that even if it's a false virtue, it has changed her, for the better or for worse, doesn't matter to her, and she is willing to learn from him. After that though, Hanlu gave her a task of giving a little warning to an unrighteous person, bringing something great yet undeserving and excessive to Hongyuan. Faust accepts the task, and Hanlu leaves off, telling her to say hi goodbye to the other Fausts for him, and she leaves it off, not relaying the greeting to them, and ends the report. There has been a lot of things that has been shown and revealed in the story. Most of the characterization of Hanlu I'll leave for later, but there are a lot of interesting things to know about what has transpired, such as his knowledge on a bunch of things, like the Faust Discord. It's very intriguing on why he needs to know about the Discord in the first place, if there even is a reason. Is he going to do a wild hunt or something? I don't know. We'll find out when he comes out, but what also is interesting is that this is the first Faust to ever defy the orders of the Gesellschaft. All other Fausts are more or less compliant with it, and using it when necessary, and by that I mean practically most of the time. But she is more or less focused with Hanlu right now, not bothering too much to look at it. Only when necessary though, I imagine, since, well, she is talking with them in the first place. But for now, let's finish out the timeline of events with Ish-chun and Ishmael. In this world, Ishmael is practically doing the same thing that Ish-chun herself was doing, preparing herself for the family hierarch war. And currently, she and Wei-san here have just left a banquet that was meant for her, and was about to head home while having a conversation with each other about a couple of things, such as her brother being the only one that was here to greet her back to Hongyuan from her journey in the Great Lake. Everyone else was either busy or didn't care about her at all. They were also discussing about the journey itself, which Carmen fucking blocked that information because the idea is a paradox in itself. They also discuss her brother Hanlu a bit more, since the song that plays out about him creeps her out, calling him a foul omen, being feared by practically everyone in Hongyuan, just like Jiachu in our world, with the scariest thing about him being that none of us have any idea what he's thinking behind that smiling face of his, because it makes her skin crawl thinking about that. But soon they eventually return home, and after a bit they are now being ambushed by a bunch of Heisho. The serpents, the hares, the rats, and a few more Heishus were attacking her clan. She at first believed that it was a combined attack of multiple people who didn't join her banquet, but it was then revealed to be Hanlu himself. Ishmael is not entirely surprised, but hoped that the good memories between them, and then living in the same family name, that she could have trusted him. But at the end of the day, they are in a battlefield, in a war, to decide on who can be a hierarch. So it doesn't matter any longer, because she has to survive tonight, and she won't back down. Not here, not now. But if I'm going to be honest, she's most likely dead, so... oh well. Now, this story doesn't have much in terms of anything new for Hanlu. Like, we already know that Hanlu has control over all of the Heishus. He's the Lord, so, you know, it's something. Some of the shit that is intriguing in this is the paradox of Ishmael being a new core for the first time, when she was there for most of her life normally, and Carmen blocking some of that information on what she needed to find in new core. And we also get some of her thoughts on Hanlu. She thinks that he is arrogant, that his preaching of humanity and righteousness was hollow and lacked meaning, kind of like our Hanlu, originally thinking that acceptance of the current situation, like poverty and the like, is also hollow because he doesn't know anything about being in poverty, just like this identity not knowing anything about humanity because of his path of vengeance. But since we're talking about him, let's analyze who he is based off of mostly the ID stories and what he says in the trailer, and theorize for a bit. If I were to describe the Hanlu identity in one word, it would be vengeful. He's a Hanlu covered in wrath, given up on kindness. I think that our Hanlu very much cares for, and replacing it with rage and anger towards the elders and his grandmother, who treated him as entertainment through them watching what he is always doing through his jade eye. The jade eye that he gouged out to show them that he is no longer their tool, that he is his own person and his first act of vengeance. Now, as far as we know, we have no idea on what he did to get to where he is now, but I think that the timeline of events on how this identity came to be would be something like this. Hanlu was born and was implanted the Jade Eye, so that the elders would be able to entertain themselves by watching all the suffering that both Hanlu and everyone else is going through outside of Teokan Temple. After the bird situation of being forced to watch the Khan family's destruction and getting to the elders, talking about on how entertaining all that was, he went back home and decided that enough was enough. Unlike our Hanlu, who decided to stop doing anything and succumb to nihilism, forgetting everything about his kindness and his heart because none of his actions mattered, this Hanlu abandoned it, throwing away all the kindness in his heart down the drain and not looking back at it. And either by himself or through some help, his jade eye was gouged out, leaving nothing but a never-ending weeping of this black, putrid blood of wrath. path that originally would cry clean and watery tears of sadness, covering his bandage in red never endlessly. Try as he might, it never stopped for some reason. After that though, he then left Hongyuan and went on a similar path of discovery like Jia Chu. But unlike him, who saw kindness in Han Lu and wanted to see if there was another way to save Hongyuan, not just through violence, this Han Lu was never treated with kindness, and he never witnessed kindness in Hongyuan as well. So no matter what kind of lessons he learned, no matter if he even truly wished to change Hongyuan for the better, at the end of the day, all of his actions, all of his violence has been made just so he can have his vengeance upon those that used him and seen him as entertainment, a tool, a gem, and eventually got his ego, I think. But when he came back to Hongyuan, he put on a mask of someone who was enlightened in his journey to preach what he was taught about humanity. But at the end of the day, a mask is a mask. Again, he doesn't really want to change Hongyuan for the better. He doesn't care about it at all. All he wants is vengeance, while putting on a mask of empathy as a kind of coping mechanism. That all of this is for the better of Hongyuan, for its people. All of it was hollow, just like Ishmael thought. He is too arrogant and too stubborn to see a better way to change Hongyuan. He is stuck in his ways of violence, but what can he do? He never saw anyone being kind in Hongyuan, and he himself wasn't treated with kindness as well. So he doesn't know if there even is a better way of doing it. At the end of the day, tears of red shall flow like a great winding river as he places the elders and his grandmother in an eternal flame to suffer, doing nothing but suffer and watch through the jade eye that Han Lu placed on the dragon statue as he rules all of Hongyuan alone, carrying the leashes of the Heishos, ruling it. Now, I will say, a lot of this is speculation. If he did have help in escaping Hongyuan and removing his eye, then who did? If he left alone, then how did he escape without his grandmother or the elders noticing? Things like that. But we'll know all that when he comes out. But until then, we can only speculate and either fall swathed in the banners of our families or prosper beneath Hongyuan's will. Anyways, yeah, good luck to those that are pulling for him, and bye.